Pires. Fantastic! What a way to claim your hat-trick.
Pires picking out Bergkamp with a chance and he's taken it. Brilliant goal. 10 minutes gone. Dennis Bergkamp gives Arsenal the lead.
There's a ring. Arsenal have won it. Arsenal have won the game.
Good football again. Smith Rowe might have to go on his own this time. Emil Smith Rowe, he's still going. Deflects, it's a post on in. Arsenal have made it 3-0.
Still Saka and Kane does defend, but Saka again it's 3-0. Oh, they're running rampant to the North London derby here.
Tomiyasu over the top for Martinelli. Gorgeous. Just gorgeous.
A good ball by Dixon, finding Smith. For Thomas, charging through the midfield. Thomas, it's up for grabs now. Thomas, right at the end.
Welcome to another episode of the Avenell Roadcast. I am Michael Price, the host of the podcast. I am joined today. It's just a trio. It's myself, it's Luke Millar, and Justin Fisher. Gentlemen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It is, we're trying to get back to being regular with this, and we're still figuring out the kinks in all of this, but, it's good to get back together with you guys and reality, just continue the positivity and the good feelings and vibes that we've had since our first conversation 2 weeks ago. Arsenal continue to look an improved side, and obviously we're coming off of a loss, and to feel positive about that, it sometimes seems a little weird. But for lack of better terms, we went toe-to-toe with, let's say, the presumptive champions of the league this year, probably one of the best teams in the world, and we caused them troubles where they didn't have answers, at least for a good, half, and then up until problems went away, we even made it difficult for them until the very last moment of the game. And so let's just start it off there. How are you both feeling with Arsenal right now? And what I mean by that is what we're seeing real? Are we seeing real tangible progress, or is it a false dawn? Are we just going to, we had a great performance, against City, but we lost, and that's kind of where we are? Just kind of wondering where you guys are with this.
Yeah, well, you can look at it in loads of different ways, and pretty much all of them right now, I would say, are positive, because it does feel like we've legitimately turned like a really big corner. Because when you think about how we've played in the past, and it's been like very patchy and maybe lacking a bit of balance. Whereas now, since the loss to Everton, we're seeing kind of the same things are now repeating in a good way in games, in the sense that we're pressing much more consistently, we're playing out from the back much more better, we're able to kind of isolate our wingers up against the fullbacks 1 versus 1, because we're better on the ball now, which I think is almost kind of the main factor of our play now, is that we have the chaos of Martinelli on the left, and we have the control of Saka on the right, and we play the ball through midfield well enough with Odegaard and the players at the back. And when we get it out to these players, because we've worked the ball so well now, Saka, every time he's getting the ball, he's been able to run at the wing back 1 versus 1. Yesterday, Ramsdale ball straight out to Martinelli on the left hand side, straight at Cancelo. They're not. We're playing it well enough now that teams aren't able to gang up on these players enough, because we're sucking them into the middle and then exploding out onto the flanks. And it's stuff like that which is showing that we've finally found a really good balance to the team, and that the team has finally got that bit of kind of composure and clarity to know what they want to do. And as you say, yesterday, Man City were playing by far and away the best team in the league. And before the game, I'm thinking, I just want us to be competitive, because obviously previously we've been rolled over in the big games this season. And I remember before the Liverpool game, I was thinking, just be competitive. And then we started off well, and it kind of descended into chaos. Whereas this time we're playing a much better team, in my opinion. And as you say, we went toe-to-toe with them. We were the better team for like the large periods of it. I'm sure we'll touch on the officiating, but when it all comes down to it, 11 versus 11, we were the better team, and I think that's huge positivity. We
right,
so much from that.
And people will say, "Oh, but we didn't have a lot of the ball." But the thing about our play yesterday, and Justin, feel free to jump in on this. What I saw yesterday is that every time we got on the ball, we weren't deliberative. We weren't like looking for an answer. We had an answer. We had a plan to go forward. And every time we got on the ball with intent to go forward. We attacked space. You mentioned, Luke, that long ball out to Gabriel Martinelli and Saka out on the right. Every time we managed to get the ball at our feet, we managed to do something with it, and we were lucky. I think, maybe Man City was lucky that they weren't looking at 3-0 at the end of the first half. If Martinelli has two shots that are one is definitely inches a little bit more to the left, and one is maybe a foot to the left, it's 3-0. It really is a really surprising moment, and it gives a lot of hope that we finally, and to your point, Luke, turned a consistent corner. Justin, how are you feeling in the wake of all of this and the recent form since the Everton loss?
Pretty much echoing everything that Luke was saying. I know, we've always talked about how Arteta, he wants his teams to have possession, and we've, been critical that it seems like we just have possession for the sake of having possession. But recently, like you were saying, we've, been having possession with a purpose and with an intent to get it out to Martinelli and Saka. They're not just dribbling idly by just to put in a cross or do something. They're being direct. They're putting the defense under pressure, forcing defenders and fullbacks into, making a choice, when are they going to dive or, going for a tackle? When are they going to back off? And just the whole team is, playing with an incredible amount of confidence that, earlier in the season, I think we all have seen flashes from the team, but like Luke was saying, after the Everton match, just slowly been building it up, the confidence to go, 15 minutes at this pace, 45 minutes, put in, a full 90-minute match where we're just completely putting the opposition under immense pressure. Here, it'd be unrealistic to expect Arsenal to completely dominate City for 90 minutes, but even, largely 60 minutes of the match for us to be dominating City like that. We talked before the Liverpool match about, that was a litmus test. Was the good run of form, just a mirage, or was it real? Obviously we got battered in that match. It was, kind of a bring back to earth moment. But in this match, I have a completely different feeling that, all right, we definitely have turned a corner. We're taking the champions on. We're playing them to the best of our ability, putting them under pressure. If it not for a couple of, should we say, lucky moments for them, Arsenal should have definitely won the match. Could have been 3-0 up, could have been even more in the second half. Like, I think I personally haven't felt this confident and great about an Arsenal team in a long, long while. This is one of the things I wanted to, talk with you guys about, like when the last time you felt this like confident about a team, even though we're coming off a loss, and that's, we should never accept a loss, but there's tons of pros and like a lot of great things to come from it, and over the holiday season.
Yeah, I would say this about how you feel about Arsenal at this moment. I think there's a lot of things that go into that, and first of all, you have a core of players that I don't think that there's anybody on this core of players. There's still people on the periphery of this team that you find a little bit unwelcome, unlikable, maybe is the better way to say it. But you generally like the core of this team. There's a play you can get behind every player, and I think that's part of what you see at the Emirates week in and week out right now. I mean, I was really amazed, given the nature of how we lost yesterday, how awesome the Emirates was yesterday. It was an amazing atmosphere, and frankly, the Emirates has been an amazing atmosphere all season long. And the feeling is this is just a group of players that everybody can get behind. So there's that. Then there's just the general consistent improvement you see. And that makes you feel that we are turning a corner. You still know. And I think part of yesterday is still a little bit of naivety, say what you want about the officiating and the calls for Gabriel's two yellows. At some level, after the first yellow, whether it was right or wrong, a more seasoned veteran player, maybe a little bit more in tune with the league, pulls back a little bit, right? Right. And I think that's just a naivety that's in this young team. That's still going to happen, and it's going to happen throughout this season. And it's why I'm wrestling with whether we will finish in the top 4. I think now definitely we are capable of getting into the top 4. I just wonder on the merit of our play. Let me put it that way. I just wonder if that there's just still a little bit of maturity that has to happen with this team before it will make the top 4. I firmly believe that my call for being in the top 6 is on and will happen. Where in the top 6, I don't know yet. It's just it's can they get rid of that maturity? But this really is a team to get behind. And look, there are going to be there are going to still be few stragglers out there that don't want to get behind the team because they have their anti-Arteta kind of bias that overloads everything that they think, and they can't look at anything positive. But I'm starting to see even some of them acknowledge where this team is going right now.
Yeah, well, it's about consistency, isn't it? That's the main thing. Is that, as you say, it's a young team, it's inexperienced, and all these players are not only experienced overall, but inexperienced in terms of Premier League football. And the positive is, right now, I'd say we're showing a level of performance that I'm not seeing from United or Spurs. So, like, if you compare all of like our game against City with, let's say, Spurs' game against Watford or Man United's last game, like we're operating at a different level to them, but it's about consistency for another half of the season, and it's maybe a bit it's not really fair to expect a team this young to maintain this level for the majority of the season. So we have to understand that like January is going to be hard because we're losing Partey. There's a lot of games to be played, a lot of important games. So I need to get through January, and then it's about kind of stick with the team, because there's going to be up and downs for the rest of the season, because we're still piecing together what this team is. I think I won't kind of like go into names because I think we'll probably talk about it a bit further on, but I do think that the club may feel like one or two clever signings in this window could maybe rejuvenate the team for a real top 4 push, which I think maybe wasn't expected at the start of the season. But now that we're in the position we are now, half the season in, the club may feel like now is the time to try and get a few more of those last kind of like puzzle pieces, just to really try and push, because realistically, it's hard for us to like, you look at teams like United's, maybe they have a really good summer, maybe they get in like a new manager, they could be a different team next season. We don't know that. Conte with Spurs, they could be a different team next season. We don't know that. All we can say now is right now we're doing well, we're evolving, and we're playing some good football. This may be our chance to kind of sneak in, and we may need maybe like another centre mid or another striker if the right player is on the market this window, if we can.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that there is an opportunity here that maybe nobody saw presenting itself this season. And being a little bit smart in January could help secure that opportunity, because I agree with you, Luke. I've watched United play, and Tottenham, of course, have looked better under Conte than they did, but they still don't scare me in the attacking sense that, maybe they would under a Pochettino, right?
Yeah.
Tottenham I'll admit it, Tottenham under Pochettino scared me, because we were not in a good place, and they were. And I'm not as I just watching them play yesterday. It was such a bad game to
boring.
Watch. It was so boring. and look, it's hard, I think, to call upon the reserves that you have as a player to kind of bring out what you had yesterday. It's easy to get up for a match like Manchester City, right? And hopefully it's still easy to get up for a match like Tottenham, but you never know from game to game how that's going to flow. And I still think we are, if you look at the trajectories of the two teams, actually even the three teams, if you want to throw United in there, I like the trajectory of where we are, because I think we took a look at what we had to do to rebuild and restructure, and we've done it. Tottenham haven't even begun it yet. United are a mishmash of extremely talented players, but no cohesiveness. No cohesiveness at all. They're winning the games that they win. They're winning because of individual brilliance rather than a team effort to do so. And I think that can only carry you so far. And I think Tottenham really they've got it. Their team is old. And I think it's going to. And now that they've got 3 games to make up, even though they're out of the Conference Cup or whatever that thing was called, they've got fixture congestion. So Arsenal really have an opportunity here, and I think to me the positions that I want another central midfielder. Somebody in that deep lying role, and I want a striker. Now that sounds great to say it, but the reality is a market going to exist for players like that in tough. January? It is tough. And we do have some outgoings that still have to go out as well. So it's a very but the great thing, Luke and Justin, is we can have this conversation now. I think if you had told us if you had told us in August that we'd be talking about what do we do in January to get into top 4. This reminds me, it was the year that we signed Arshavin. Okay. I don't know if you remember that year that we signed Arshavin. We were just outside the top 4. Aston Villa was sitting in 4th, and everybody was worried about Arsenal missing out on the top 4. And then we went and signed Arshavin, and we get back into the top 4. Now, I'm not saying Arshavin was the sole reason why we got in the top 4. I think if you look back on that January, we had actually started to turn a corner already, but that's the kind of opportunity that presents itself. If you say, okay, we need to get top 4, we need to bring somebody in that can help us do that. Right at that time, it was Arshavin was viewed that way. That's the opportunity that's here that I don't think anybody looking at Arsenal in August would have figured we'd be having. Justin, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the performances of the 3 other sides around us, I think Arsenal in years past have kind of been in the reverse scenario where playing like crap, kind of getting some results, but eventually those results will dry up if the underlying metrics aren't there. Like we saw, during the 22 match unbeaten run under Emery, we were going great, but we were just pulling out 1-0 wins when we played like shit. And eventually that completely unraveled. And it's nice to be sitting on the other side where Arsenal are playing great. The underlying metrics are saying so. We have the points in hand, and we see it time and time again that just because you have matches in hand doesn't guarantee you 3 points every time, even if your matches in hand are against weaker opponents. So it's very nice to be on the other side of the coin where we're actually playing good. And, this time we didn't get the result we deserved, but largely we have. And I think, with the transfer business, it would be very, fascinating to know in the conversations with Arteta and Edu, what their goal, obviously their goals for the season would be to get into top 4 and their expectations, but what their, more realistic expectations, if it was just top 6 is, the minimum. If it'd be nice if we got top 4, but realistically, you think, with the young players, the adaptation period may take a while, bumps in the road, et cetera, et cetera. And now sitting in the top 4, how, they have to be thinking 1 or 2 pieces and we can be sealing top 4. And I'm interested, if we do something similar to last year, like where we, had a loan for Odegaard with the goal that we would sign him in the summer. And if we do that with a striker, if we do that with a midfielder, somebody that we could loan in, rather than like if the club, is maybe unwilling to shell out 50, 60 million pounds. So I guess, it depends on the transfer targets. And you're right, it's difficult in January to get things over the line. But I think Edu has to know that the opportunity that is presented right now is rare. And, the situation could change dramatically next year. Like you said, given Conte with the summer, with given United and Ragnick summer to, get in, an actual midfielder to go with those attackers and try and build a cohesive system. So Arsenal need to seize the opportunity. So it's going to be interesting what we do.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is I think you have to, the players you have to bring in. I love the profile of our team right now, but I think you actually have to bring in some players that are a little bit more mature at this point. I think that's one of the great things about Lacazette right now is Lacazette and Partey and Xhaka lend that maturity, even though, people will have their say about Granit Xhaka's role in yesterday's performance. He is part of that maturity that the team needs. Yes, he has his moments, but he's still viewed very positively within the squad, right? As a leader, as somebody whose voice lends some credence in the dressing room. Lacazette, to me, I know that him and Aubameyang are considered best buds in this squad, but he's completely 80 degrees different than Aubameyang, because Aubameyang it always strikes me that Aubameyang's outplaying for Aubameyang, and Lacazette, even when he's not scoring, he's trying to do things to help the team, and you get the sense, and that's what Arteta wants. He wants a team of he wants 11 players on the field, all whatever cliche you want to use, singing from the same hymn sheet, rowing in the same direction, whatever you want to use, that's what he wants. And that's why when Aubameyang's out there, it doesn't work, is because he doesn't fit into the system. He doesn't play within the system. And the effort that he gives is minimal at best, which means it's almost to that old saying of playing with 10. There's another cliche for you, 10 guys on the field, So I think what you do for January is you've got to find another one of those, because we don't know what's going to happen with Lacazette come the summer. By all intents and purposes, it sounds like he's going to be off. He has not signed a new deal, though there are rumors of a 1+1 deal out there for him from Arsenal, but I think he's looking for something longer. And then I'm still not convinced Granit Xhaka stays. I still believe that the agreement from this summer to extend was twofold. I think he wasn't pushing for a move to Roma, but at the same time, he kind of maybe thought that it was time for him to move on, to do something different, because Arsenal were going in a different direction. But when that didn't happen, he decided, I'm not pushing, so I'll stay. And they renegotiated the contract saying, hey, if something comes in next year, we'll revisit it. Right. I think that's, so what we do this January obviously has impact on the top four race, but I think hopefully Edu and Arteta are looking at at replacements for at least those two important cogs in the squad, because I do think that we're in for some significant outgoings beyond the names that we think will go this summer.
Yeah, and the beauty of Lacazette's performances was, like, realistically, he's been brilliant since coming in. So because he's been so good, we don't necessarily have to rush into a striker signing this January if the right quality of player isn't there. I think sentiment's maybe a little bit different, because if Maitland-Niles is going, and it does seem like he is going, then there is kind of a gaping hole for January there, and probably even the rest of the season. So I would be surprised if we don't bring in a centre mid pretty sharpish if Maitland-Niles is to go. But in terms of Lacazette, as you say, he's been pretty exemplary since coming into the team, and you see that he's helping people around him. He's being that foil. I mean, in terms of goal return, it's not ideally what I guess us or he would want, but he's doing the job otherwise. And it's the balance of the team that is kind of helping the team play to the level it is now. And like I said, it's key to that right now. So if you're looking at the usual kind of targets, we're looking at like kind of the big money targets like the Calvert-Lewins, the Vlahovic's. Is it possible for us to get one of those in Jan? I'm not really sure. I think we'd probably be looking at a striker well down the pecking order, but that's not to say that we can't kind of find a great quality player that's not really in the eye. Because I say, like last January, Odegaard wasn't like massively sought after, and as Justin was saying, it was a really good example. We came in January, and I thought he's really transformative for the rest of our season. And we've seen it in other times, like you mentioned, Sharvin. I remember when Bruno Fernandes went to Manchester United, he was really transformative for the whole entire rest of their season. So I do think that you have to get the right players in, but even if it's just the placebo effect of having a good player and a good personality join the dressing room, that kind of gives the team that bit of lift and a bit more kind of energy to go on, then that in itself can be the telling point. Because after Jan, February and March, these are two like huge months where we can kind of have a good run to get some points to really have a top four push. And if we do well in February and March, then we're going to be in such a good position by the end of the season.
You're right. And and this is the great thing about this, because I'm thinking about this conversation, Luke and Justin. I'm like, where can I go from here? Because the great thing about it is there's so many places we can go with our conversation about Arsenal right now, because that's what this direction we're taking has done. And you know, and look, and Luke, Justin, and I, you know, we chat on and we know each other's position on Arsenal. I think we would all say that we're patient people. That doesn't mean that we don't get frustrated. We weren't like when we had frustrating moments at the beginning of the season. It's not to say we weren't frustrated, but you know, now I think we really see that that this vision is happening and what that really means. And so I want to change gears a little bit, you know, on this, and because we could go down this rabbit hole, but obviously the big thing about yesterday, and not just yesterday, but in general, so the Premier League, we know, is considered by far the greatest league, or at least maybe it's the most entertaining league in the world, right? Supposedly, you know, as the Premier League markets itself as the greatest league in the world, its officiating leaves a lot to be desired.
Oh, God.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought I was ready for this part, but
nobody's ever ready for this part. And here's the thing. Let me just say this about yesterday's game, but it goes beyond just yesterday's game. It's the inconsistency with the calling. Because if you're going to tell me that that you needed to review that call on Granit Xhaka, when Atwell clearly thought initially that there was a dive involved in that, not the tugging and pulling, and basically urged play on, right? If you're going to tell me that you have to go back to the monitor and review that, then you have to have reviewed it with the same eye the non-call on Martin Odegaard, because frankly, when you look at the Martin Odegaard playback, it looks worse. Because you can clearly see from one of the angles that Ederson never gets the ball. He gets Odegaard's foot, right? And look, I think I always tend to be a rational person, and I think you could look at both of those calls and understand the calls, right? You could say, okay, I understand why maybe they made that call. What you don't want is the inconsistency for how they got to that decision. Right. Mm-hmm. And then Arsenal had 11 fouls yesterday. They got, what was it? 4 yellow cards and a red card out of it. I mean, that just seems to be significant, right? That seems to be, wait a second, 11 fouls and how many cards out of it? And then you look at I'm sorry, but Rodri should have been off twice. I mean, he should have been off. I'm not saying that the tackle, that 2-footed tackle was a red card, but that was a yellow card to me and a free kick on goal, not a corner kick that Atwell.
Saka got the yellow card for that, didn't he?
Yes. Saka got the yellow card, and I just couldn't understand Atwell's calling. Atwell's just, I mean, there's a reason why he was suspended previously from calling a game for 2 weeks, right? He's not a good referee, and yesterday, but it's not just Atwell. It's the referees in this league in general. You could look back at the game, the Liverpool Tottenham game. You could look back at the Tottenham Watford game yesterday. It's the officiating is poor, and I know there were some guys out on social media saying we shouldn't criticize refs. I don't think we should abuse refs, but when refs, I think there has to be some sort of transparency in the calls. You know, if you're going to go make that call, if you're going to tell Atwell that he has to go to the screen to check the screen, then you have to say that we have to know the why, the rationale why you made that decision there and not the decision there. Because frankly, I think that you have a stronger case for a clear error in the first case than there, right?
No, 100%.
So is this a problem with the PGMOL, or is it just the quality of people that they get for refereeing?
It's both. I think it is both. It comes down to. I've heard a lot of referees kind of talk about how it's like game management, how they manage the game, and how sometimes the game, you have to do things to keep the game under control. But I think the game yesterday, the referee kind of failed what I would say is the minimum requirements of officiating a Premier League match, and that is, as you said, the consistency of calls, and it's down to the fact that obviously the challenge on Odegaard, that there is a very clear angle which shows the entire contact that was made with the ball and with Odegaard. It's a clear angle. They have access to that angle because BT had access to it. Mm-hmm. So the angle's there. You can see Odegaard gets there first. Ederson makes a challenge. It's rash. He goes through Odegaard's foot. Odegaard gets the ball. It's a pen. Mm-hmm. It is a pen. To me, that's much closer to an objective call than the other call. But I was a bit annoyed when they didn't review it, because I thought if he reviews it, it's a pen. But that is the case when they get sent to the monitor. And then, but I kind of, you let it go, and then we score a bit later. But the first thing I understand is I've seen some opinion where it says oh, you didn't get the pen, but you did score a few minutes later. So it doesn't work like that. If someone steals your phone and then you buy a new phone, it's not the same thing just because you've still got a phone, right? So it's it was a period of the game where we were on top, and we should have had the pen. And then, obviously football's a game of chain reactions. Perhaps we don't go on to score another goal after that, but we deserved the opportunity to use that spell we were on top to its fullest. So we should have had the pen. We should have had anything that preceded that. So for that, I don't agree with as well. In terms of the referees, as I say, it's both. The quality of refereeing has been terrible in this country for a very long time, and it goes back to Wenger talking about it. The referees have not evolved. The quality of referees has not evolved. A lot of ex-referees are scathing about the quality of refereeing in this country. But it comes to the fact that VAR gets a lot of stick, right? But you can put glasses on a blind man. It's not going to help him see, right? These referees are bad referees. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the referee on the pitch. It's the guy in VAR. It's a whole clusterfuck of them being terrible. And as you say, we got yellow cards yesterday, and I can't argue. I don't know what Gabriel said to him for the first yellow card, right? So I don't know about that. I can't argue the second yellow cards. I can't argue maybe with any yellow card we received. But as you say, the first yellow cards City got was Rodri taking a shot off for the winner in the 94th minute. I saw in the first half Saka going past Rodri and Rodri smashing him in the back of the Achilles. I saw Rodri sliding into the challenge against Martinelli, which threw him into a whole kind of 360 backflip. And I saw tactical fouls all over the pitch. There was not equal treatment.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me put it to you this way. So Arsenal are getting 1.65 yellows per game, right? Fifth lowest in the league. They're getting 9 fouls they're committing five 9 fouls per game, the second lowest in the game, and they're getting a whopping 0.10 red cards, which is joint second highest per 90, which seems very high, right? So if you're getting 9 fouls per game and almost 2 yellows per game and the second highest amount of red cards per 90, it seems look, and I don't buy into bias or conspiracy theories, but that just seems a little bit high. And I don't know, is there granted, and we saw in the wake of, I forget whose call it was, maybe it was Harry. Yeah, it was in the wake of Harry Kane not getting a penalty or a red card or something
against Liverpool.
There was a lot of discussion, and there was actually one referee who came out and said, yes, we do kind of know who players are, and so when you take a look at what Arsenal are doing, I think, and this is where I think yesterday comes into play, I think Granit Xhaka gets a second look because he's Granit Xhaka, right? Yeah. I think that call is made purely on reputation of who he is, and I don't know that that's fair. I don't think that's fair to any player. It was interesting to see today that Sadio Mane finally got a yellow card for leading with his elbow. But that could explain why we see such a disparity in the calls against Arsenal, and I can't, as much as I appreciate who Granit Xhaka is, I can't let him off the hook when he makes his boneheaded decisions. I thought yesterday was a harsh call on him because
but you can't argue with it, can you? That's the problem.
No, because he
gives him a decision. He doesn't have to grab the shirt, but he does.
Right,
it's just the consistency. Yeah,
right, because he doesn't need to have the shirt. Now, granted, and I saw a lot of pros online, Cesc Fabregas, Ian Wright saying, and a lot of other neutral pros say, there's shirt pulling all the time. If we're going to call that, then we have to call the shirt pulling that happens all the time on corner kicks and free kicks and stuff like that.
To say the Harry Maguire pull on Tomiyasu, that was called, should have been a pen.
Which was hugely more obvious as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's such an inconsistent call, and I get it. The refereeing, and I say this as somebody who's gone through a referee course here in the U.S., it's a subject. You are, as the referee, have to make the call. It's open. You have the laws of the game, and they're asking you to interpret the laws of the game, right? But you can still say, you can set a consistent thread here and say, okay, if you see somebody with a handful of shirt that prohibits them from getting to the ball, that's a foul. It's a foul in any situation, right? They just don't do it. They just don't do it, and that's the problem. It's not so much that the call went against Arsenal, because I tend to agree with you, Luke. He's got a handful of shirt. It's in the box, and the guy's going down. What do you think was going to happen? Right? But it's not consistently levied across the league, across play, and that's where the problem lies. And then when you take into account that was called to look at on the monitor and the Odegaard wasn't, it lays out significant issues with how games are being called. And then when you look at it in the context of all the non-Arsenal games that are having issues, and then you have the wider issue of how poor the refereeing, the officiating in this league is.
Yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like, they're either both a penalty or neither are a penalty. I can understand it either way. If you're going to not check the Odegaard one and you set the bar to there and you say, okay, we're not checking that, there is a definitive angle which shows that Ederson goes through his foot and doesn't get the ball, but we're not going to check it. So in that game, that is the bar. So for them to then, like 30, 40 minutes later, see that challenge, go, okay, we're going to check that, to me is ridiculous.
Right.
But we see it every week.
Yeah. That's probably, in my opinion, I think that is the most, the biggest cause of concern with the refereeing. And, I I kind of understand, different matches, different referees, there's going to be some inconsistency, just like you said, the nature of refereeing is subjective. But when there's just massive inconsistencies within the same match refereed, obviously by the same referee, it makes no sense. And, that's part of why VAR was implemented, to remove those inconsistencies and get more decisions correct. But when, I think we see, like we mentioned in that Tottenham-Liverpool match, how that was just such a wide, 2 calls. Both of them probably should have been red cards, but one wasn't and one was in this match, which 2 calls easily could have said them both be penalties, also could have said that they're both not penalties. I'm fine with either of them, just as long as it's consistent. And especially, it just doesn't make sense how obviously the players on the pitch saw that tackle that Ederson made and thought that's not a penalty. How, I'm sure Granit Xhaka has thought that if he grabbed the shirt, yes, that's a foul and, deserving of a penalty. But if the keeper can go through Odegaard, take him out, and that's not a penalty, how could a shirt tug be?
Right. Yeah, and look, you said something, Justin, that I want to pick up on. Atwell's done this to us before. I mean, Atwell was the VAR referee that didn't make the call when Tomiyasu gets his face stamped.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, Atwell's just a poor – I mean, Atwell could very well be the worst referee in the league. And that's saying a lot given how bad they are at this point right now.
Yeah.
But so let me put this to you guys. How do you fix it? I mean, I've kind of said the league has to come out and say, yes, these are the laws of the game, but if you see X, Y, or Z, then you have to make a call or don't make a call, right? So, and this could go into a larger, longer conversation, but real quick, if you could fix officiating, I'll start with you, Luke. How do you fix it?
We need new leadership for the PGMOL is like the main thing, because I think it's Mike Riley that's the current leader. It's ever since he's been in charge, it's been just a downward hill. It's just been digressing, and the quality is just evaporating. And it's at a point now where trust between players and fans and officials is gone now. So we need new leadership for the whole kind of organization that works with referees, and then we need to have more clarity. Like stuff has to be done that can kind of build that bridge of faith, whether that's miking up referees like they do in rugby, or whether that's having VAR kind of like the workings out shown in stadiums. Because like one of the main things is like when we're kind of sitting home watching on TV, like we get some information, they tell it to the broadcasters, and it kind of like filters through. But when you're in the stadium, you've got no idea what's going on, and the confusion that can kind of bring is just unbelievable, really. And it's like the game that just happened, the Liverpool versus Chelsea game, the Kovacic goal. They stopped the celebrations of that to check for an offside, which was realistically never going to be given as an offside. It was on the technicality that Rudiger might have been interfering in play, but he was nowhere near it. So like the fact that they've taken possibly goal of the season and the celebrations that have been cut short so they can check something which is never going to be given anyway, it takes away from the game. So the biggest thing I can say is we need more transparency and more clarity with what referees are thinking, how they make their decisions, and why they're making these decisions. So if we can mic up referees so we know what they're saying, then that could be a decent idea. If we can get like some explanation on like the screens in stadiums over to what VR is doing, what it's checking, why they've made a decision, this kind of stuff can go a long way just to help us understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. But the main thing is the referees aren't good enough. And at the start of the season, the referees all meet and they discuss these situations, and they kind of discuss what they're going to do when these situations happen. And right now we're seeing different referees. As you say, it's subjective, but there's got to be a blanket rule that kind of covers it all. Right. These referees are doing massively different things in different situations.
Do you know, Luke, and this is one thing I don't know. So I don't know how familiar you are with the NFL, but in the NFL, every refereeing crews, officiating crews, actually in the preseason will meet with the teams and they'll go over how they're going to call games, right? What's a foul? They will review every team goes through this. And so much so, actually, that I don't know if you ever watch like Hard Knocks or stuff like that, you'll actually see officiating crews in practice, right? When they're doing scrimmages in practice, the officiating crews will actually officiate the I've often thought that something like that, where players and referees are on the same page in terms of the calls, could help go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do that meeting at the start of the season. I'm pretty sure I've heard people reference it where at the start of the season, referees do meet with managers and players to say, I mean, maybe it's more to discuss kind of new rules and new how it's going to go and stuff. But I'm pretty sure that they are meant to kind of talk about, this is how this is how the rules are being implemented this season. But it still seems like it gets into the season and it's just different. It's like it just kind of reverts back. There is no, as we've said the whole time, there's no consistency of law of interpretation of that law, and until we kind of set a higher bar and hold referees to it, nothing's really going to change.
Yep. Justin, what about you?
Yeah, so I think I completely agree with everything Luke said. My first thought would be some sort of, it'd be nice for referees. They call these games. If they make an error, there's some sort of reprimand, that they're suspended or they, work in the championship for a match day, something like that, where it's, like they are held to a high standard publicly, just like players are obviously, players and managers and teams are held to a high standard that, it's obvious. I think there's an issue that, like Luke is saying with the leadership, that referees can do no wrong. Sometimes they may say something but it's very rare. They'll always, even after this match, they released, this is why these calls were made, blah, blah, blah. But I think like it's fairly obvious that there's, clear inconsistencies and something wrong was done. That, Atwell, he's, shown consistent inconsistencies, and there's, should be some sort of punishment. And, if referees across the league are, being publicly punished for making mistakes, just like players, they are punished by, getting red cards and such, then, they would naturally have to hold themselves to a higher standard rather than, if the leadership is just standing back, standing behind them no matter what, then that's naturally just going to be a, positive reinforcement loop that they're just obvious, they're not getting in trouble for making bad calls, and they're just going to keep making bad calls because they're not going to get in trouble with it. And so, kind of ties into the leadership. So yeah, I mean, and I guess, it's hard because I think in every league, most of them, there's always going to be referee errors, and, that's part of the game. And I hate using referees as an excuse for why we didn't win. I think, for example, after the Everton game, like I felt we should have had a red card and been up a man after Tomiyasu got his face stomped on. But that's not the reason, it's not the reason that we lost.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. In this match, it feels like way more that the reason we lost is referees.
Can I be honest with you? That's a great progression for us as Arsenal fans. I think coming out of the Everton match, we were like, yeah, the referee sucked, but so did we,
Yeah, nice.
Yesterday, there is a progression in this, and even over last year, how we feel about these matches right now. We're upset because we performed well, and I think, Luke, it goes back to what you said at the outset. All we asked out of this match was that we perform well, that we don't capitulate in this match, that we don't fold, and we didn't, and we played a good match.
It'd have been easy to as well. After the red card, it could have been 3-4-5.
And this is where I'll give Arteta a lot of credit yesterday. From his vantage point, they changed the shape. They went to a 5-3-1, and they kept Man City out to the outside. It was only when when just a moment of lapse, their one good shot on goal, the one time we let them inside the 18 really effectively, that they got in. All right. So look, guys, this has been a great conversation for this week. And with only the three of us, it kind of went a lot quicker. We covered a lot of territory. So I'm going to do like I did in the last one. I'm going to throw out one question, a little curveball, but it's not really a curveball because I think we kind of looking at where Arsenal are right now. Where do you think they finish this season? Luke, I'll start with you.
I think we've got a genuine chance top 4, but if I'm being realistic, I think I would say 5th, and I'd be happy with our progression if we were to finish 5th. But after the last kind of 3-4 games, I have to say, like, I'm much more optimistic than I've been since Wenger was here. We're seeing things now that we haven't seen for years, and that's fantastic. And if we can maintain this level of performance, if we play every game for the rest of the season, which I know it's not going to happen, but if we did the same performance we played yesterday, then we'll finish top 4. And
exactly,
we just have to. We can't be consistent the whole season. We're going to have better spells and we're going to have worse spells. We just hope that the consistency is enough. But we see what January brings. I'd say realistically 5th, but I have like more hope than I've had in a long time, and that's brilliant.
Right. Justin, how about you?
I'll be the optimist here, and I will say dead set for 4th.
Nice.
I mean, I kind of hinted at it at the onset that, like, I haven't felt this, confident and optimistic about an Arsenal side in a long, long time. And so I'm just going to ride that, I think we're playing better. Yeah, we're playing better than the other 3 teams that are vying for 4th. In our underlying metrics, I hate to use that word, but they show that we're also, that we're playing well, that there's the data behind. Right.
The data now supports the output. Right.
Exactly. And so given the summer, I also think that I trust Edu and Arteta to whatever they decide to bring in the January, that will those players that will fit into the squad and, build up the squad in the areas that we need, like we were mentioning in striker and center midfield. And I also think a big thing about it is that, we're not in Europe. We are not going to get to the end of the season with playing multiple matches in a week when the body is being broken down, and hope, I'm going to trust that we're not going to have as many injuries as some of the other teams. If they're after playing 30 games, they still have 3 games in a week, there's going to be naturally injuries there. Hopefully we don't experience that, but we're setting ourselves up for success, and that's more than I would have asked for at this point in the season.
And when you think about Tottenham, the fact that they actually have to make up 3 games now, it all works out. So I'm going to be a little bit more bolder. I actually think so. I think you're both right, but the reality is this: we're going to actually push further higher. We're going to push get into third to get to third. We're not going to make it. We're going to fall out, and I actually think we slide a little bit. I think we're going to continue to improve. We're going to kind of get hope that, hey, now look what's in, and I think Luke's right. We're going to see this push happen, but then we're going to kind of slide a little bit of our lack of maturity is going to come in, and we'll ultimately finish it around 5th. But I agree with both of you. I don't think I've been this optimistic about where Arsenal are going since probably around 2015, I think that's the last time that I felt really, really good about Arsenal, and heartbroken about Arsenal at the same time. So I'm optimistic. It looks like we are on a really good path, and I hope it continues, and I think it will continue. So, guys, this has been a great time with you. I really appreciate all of us getting together. We'll be back at it sometime next week. We'll have some cup games to kind of go over, and hopefully maybe the window's open. Maybe something happens, some outgoings, Newcastle supposedly wants to make a bid for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, but an AMN's out there somewhere. So, guys, thank you very much. This has been another episode of the Avenell Roadcast. I am Michael Price. You can follow me at You Are My Arsenal. Luke, you can follow at Ekelkun, which is basically it's Luke Kun, spelled.
You're the first person to pronounce it.
How did I miss that?
And then
I tried to pronounce it once and was like, what on earth?
and then you have Justin, who's at JT Fisher 34, right? 34.
Yep.
Did I get that right? All right. These are great writers. They for us, they are, but they're also good guys. They know their football, and we're really glad to have them as part of this crew. So thank you all for listening in, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Avenell Roadcast.